I've been seeing this article pop up a lot and I have some thoughts, but I'm actually really interested in your thoughts, so feel free to leave those in the comments. So basically this article is about a company, Quantic Foundry, who's created a gamer motivation profile survey, and they've been giving it to people over the last 9 years. This gamer motivation profile has 12 different motivations and basically is designed to see what keeps you as a gamer playing certain games or what appeals to you. Among the motivating factors are things like destruction, excitement, community, strategy, power, challenge, and story. And according to their website, over 1.7 million gamers have completed profiles. Now the results that they've gotten is that the appeal of strategy has substantially declined over the past 9 years. This is even more notable because it wasn't just a little bit. This decline is almost twice as much as the next category. For the sake of explanation, in their motivation model, strategy is defined as the appeal of long-term thinking, planning, and careful decision making. The article goes on to talk about how they thought maybe this was related to the pandemic and people were just overloaded mentally and didn't want to deal with it, but as they analyzed the data, the decline in strategy clearly predated the pandemic. Even when comparing between men and women gamers, they say the decline in strategy is remarkably consistent. And the same can even be said for US and non-US gamers. Basically, according to this survey, the motivation and appeal of the strategy genre and deep thinking in games has been on the steady decline for almost 10 years now. Yikes. What could be the reason for this? The article touches on it briefly and states what we're probably all thinking. We all know that our attention spans as a whole have gone down, and that might have something to do with it. It also talks about a theory where the constant intrusion and negativity of social media has basically left us all in a state of permanent cognitive overload. But realistically, strategy games like Civilization and even turn-based games like XCOM have always been a very specific niche to begin with. However, we can't forget a game like Baldur's Gate 3 that peaked at 875,000 concurrent players on Steam, or even Manor Lords, which was Steam's most wishlisted game ever and has sold 2 million copies as an early access single-player city builder. So is the appeal of strategy and planning really declining to gamers, or is it something else? Let me know your thoughts. In my opinion, there's a couple things wrong with this, and the first one being that this survey takes into account mobile gamers, console gamers, and PC gamers. However, the majority of the games that fall under this umbrella and deep strategy games are really designed around and marketed towards PC more than anything else. Not to mention games like XCOM that are still alive today based solely on the PC mod system and just how many different ways you can mod and change the game to your liking. Secondly, as a genre or even a game mechanic, strategy is a very broad term. You've got real-time, turn-based, grand strategy, 4X games, and I feel like this survey and its approach kind of lumps everything into that 4X grand strategy Civilization style game. And let's be honest, Civilization and 4X games are really not in the greatest spot right now in my opinion, and the formula for them really hasn't seen much in innovation or anything new in a long time. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Civilization when I was a kid and I had 10 hours to play it without thinking about it, but now it's hard to find that kind of time as an adult, and then when I haven't played for like a week, I basically forget where I was at and I have to restart anyways. I can't be the only one like that. And that's just one of the common problems with these massive 4X strategy style games. I've tried to get into a lot of them, I've played a decent amount of them, and in my opinion, they all suffer from the same problem. The early game is when all the excitement's happening, you're expanding, you're doing all these things, and then the mid to late game just gets very tedious and usually kind of repetitive no matter how many times you play. Even some of the 4X games that I've really liked, like Stellaris and Age of Wonders, suffer from this same problem. And that in itself means these games are just not going to appeal to the mass public, and that's fine. I think Baldur's Gate is a good example that a solid game with a good story and depth to it can really actually be very successful in the mainstream. And I would love to see game developers work on more things like that, but studies like this and data that I feel is kind of skewed a little bit is the type of thing the game industry tends to look at and see that these games are not going to be commercially profitable or viable. But in truth, if you make a good game, I really do feel that they will come, and that's why they just need to give us XCOM 3, damn it. However, I do have some reservations and feelings about that too, and if you want to hear them, check out the video on screen now.